Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Lecture 6 of English 100B. Once again, some important reminders. I know you've heard these before, but these are really important. You should be adding on to a grammar review cassette tape, and you should be listening to it at least once a day from now clear on through the end of the quarter. And also, you should be using the online grammar tutorial to supplement all classroom presentations. Do remember that the URL for that website is grammar.deanzacollege.org, and you should also be referring to listserv memos for due dates on current assignments. And I wanted to make a note that with regard to the instructions on how to fill out the cover sheet for quiz number 1 on the simple sentence, page 147, in laying out the text, that is to be taken out of your book and stapled to your completed quiz. But there are no A and B blanks where you can fill in the required subject choices. So please add this information to that cover sheet on page 147. Just put down in ink category A, fill it in, or category B, fill that in, and then circle the category that you've selected to write about. Now for today, I have a much longer agenda than I think we can cover, but we'll see how far we go. Our emphasis is going to be on the prepositional phrase and the complex sentence. I'm going to start out by checking your answers to exercise 5 on locating prepositional phrases in the Palette book on pages 89 to 96. And then we'll do a little more practice on identifying prepositional phrases and their function on pages 97 through 99. Then we're going to start a new sentence type. We're going to go through pages 101 to 107 in the Palette book. And in those pages, we'll talk about mastering the definition for the complex sentence, learning the definition and function for the dependent clause, and your need to memorize a new set of words, subordinate connectives. We'll then go on to discuss how you recognize, eliminate, or correct a dependent clause fragment, and we'll talk about distinguishing between words that can be either subordinate connectives or prepositions. Once again, we'll analyze examples that are in the Setting Up the Palette textbook. And then we'll go to laying out the text on page 7.1, and I'm going to give you a suggested assignment, or you practice switching gears, pages 73 to 83. And if time permits, we're going to go to Setting Up the Palette on 109 to 114 and talk about punctuation rules that apply to the complex sentence. We'll talk about your need to track and tabulate clauses and also to create visual diagrams that apply to that particular sentence type. In the way of written assignments, I will give you listening test 2 on page 41 in laying out the text, and then we'll go to page 71, and I'll ask you to do exercise 3 on pages 73 to 83, where you get practice distinguishing prepositions from subordinate connectives. And finally, if we get that far, I will be asking you to do exercise 4 on pages 85 to 89, which will give you extra practice in working with the punctuation rules that apply to the complex sentence. Again, please always refer to listserv memos for due dates on current assignments. Well, before we do anything at all, I'm going to ask you please to close your books. If you have your book open, just close it, because we talked about prepositions and prepositional phrases in the last lecture, and I want to see what went down. So the first thing I would ask Jeff is this: how would you define a prepositional phrase? Farah, how would you define a prepositional phrase? People, it's 2 hours of outside time for every hour in class. Jessica, what's the definition of a prepositional phrase? No idea. Kim?
A phrase that can be left out in a sentence.
That's true, but it's not the definition. You can leave any phrase out of a sentence, but that doesn't define one. Amy, how do you define a prepositional phrase? Did we talk about this? Am I having a deja vu attack? Ben, how do you define a prepositional phrase? Elbelin?
It answers a question.
That's the function. How do you define it, Scott?
It's a phrase that begins with a preposition and ends with a noun or pronoun object.
Okay. Now, what's the function, Elbelin? That's what you started to tell me about.
It answers a question.
What questions?
Like who, what, where, when, how.
She left one out, Amy. What is it?
Why?
Why? Okay, so the function is to add extra information to a sentence, and you do that by answering those questions, 6 of them in total: who, how, where, when, what, why. Vince, what are the prepositions that begin with the letter A?
What?
Did you say what? And I said A. Janice, A, loud.
Oh, okay.
About, above.
That's 2 down, about 100 to go. Justin, A.
About, above, across, along. A, as.
Well, it's better. That's the best one I've heard so far. Yvonne, let's try. A.
About, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, as, at.
B.
Before, behind, below, beneath, beside, between, beyond, but by.
D.
Despite, down, during.
E.
Except.
F.
For, from.
I.
In, inside, into.
L.
Like.
O. No, N.
Near.
O.
Of, off, on. Onto, let's see. Of, off, on. Onto, outside, over.
P.
Past.
S.
Since. Through, throughout, to, toward is T.
U.
Is under, until, up, on,
W.
with, without, with, within, without.
Good. If I had asked you to do that, Jerry, could you have done it? Well, let's find out. Let's find out. Let's just go to A. Let's see how far you get.
I don't even remember the first 2 she said.
Okay. Point to be taken. You've got to have these down because there's no way, I'll probably prove that to you, and you had a prepositional phrase assignment to go through, that you're going to be able to sort out prepositional phrases if you don't know the prepositions. And unfortunately, it doesn't do you any good to know that a prepositional phrase begins with a preposition, again, if you don't know the prepositions. This is the work I'm talking about that you should have had down solid by now. If you just back yourself up mentally to page 75, you should know this definition by heart. How long? For the rest of your life. A prepositional phrase begins with a preposition. That's the easy part. It ends with a noun or pronoun object. At least it does that most of the time. In terms of function, it adds extra information to a sentence, and it does so, just like Elbelin said, by answering one of those 6 questions, which you have to have memorized like a film strip. Who, how, when, where, why, what. One of the reasons for having this absolutely straight again is so that you don't make the mistake of picking out the object of a preposition as the subject of a clause. I asked you to memorize these single word prepositions. I told you at the time that this was a partial list only. It looks like all the prepositions in the world, but clearly it's not. I asked you to make yourself a cheat sheet with alphabetical rows, A, B, D, just like I went through those prompts with Yvonne a minute ago. I told you that there are some words, like of and to, that get used again when you move on to the group prepositions, which by now you should also have memorized. Reminding yourself that the difference between a single word preposition and a group preposition is just that. The group preposition consists of more than one word, but as I said to you in the last lecture, if you know that to is a preposition, pretty simple to remember that any variation of to is likely to be a group preposition, such things as according to, contrary, due to. And if you know that of is a preposition, any variation is likely to be a group preposition, like ahead of, because of, by means of, a whole rack of them on that third column, in spite of, instead of, on account of, out of, with the exception of. And you really do need to memorize those, people, and there's no shortcut. I mean, you have 2 ways to go, 3 if you take Scott's suggestion. Either put them on the cassette grammar review tape that you're making and listening to daily, and that's the easy one. You can sit down with your feet on a table, your eyes closed, press rewind, play, rewind as many times as it takes to get the job done. Or that cheat sheet card, or both, remembering to read them at night before you go to sleep. And Scott gave you another method of writing them down, folding a piece of paper over, writing them down again, checking to see which ones you've got and which ones you left out. Whatever it takes, that's your job. As a scholar, you've got to get those down. So we're up to exercise 5 on page 89. Let's see how you did on that. And this is where you were to get practice locating prepositional phrases. And the directions, I'm reminding you, said this. You underline the subject and the verb of each main clause, just for drill. Most of them will be simple sentences. You put parentheses around each prepositional phrase, and then the important part, to reinforce the fact that you're looking at a prepositional phrase, is to write each phrase out. And to remind yourself about the function, in the space to the right, you want to indicate what question a particular phrase answers. So we started out with this example on page 89. One of the paintings mentioned in Tracy Chevalier's novel is called The Milkmaid. You would have put a line under 1 and 2 under is called. You would have labeled that M-1 because it does happen to be a simple sentence. You would have parenthesized of the paintings to figure out what question is answered back up and into it. One of what? That answers what? Of the paintings mentioned in Tracy Chevalier's novel, mentioned in what? Is called The Milkmaid. And then the reinforcement comes from, and don't short circuit this step, writing out each phrase and also the question answered. Now, I may not write each one out with you today, but I expect you to do it. I expect you've done it, as a matter of fact, and if you haven't, I want that taken care of. I told you that in 16 sentences, I thought you'd find 59 prepositional phrases. If you remember Maritza saying on the last lecture she found 62, and she may be right. We'll see. And with reference to that particular painting, we'll have another look. The painting that's described in this particular exercise is Johann Vermeer's painting of The Milkmaid. So we can take a look at that to remember what's being discussed here. One that he painted in 1658 to 1660. And it is on exhibit, actually, on display in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. Very small, size of a sheet of notebook paper. So let's try this particular sentence and see how we go. The family's maid, Tanneke Everpole, is shown wearing a white milkmaid's cap on her head and a blue apron tucked into the waistband of her red skirt. Maritza, what did you say the subject was here?
Maid
Maid. And what about the verb?
is shown wearing.
Is shown, you can pick up that half verb if it's directly attached to the main verb, that's fine. And what kind of a clause would it be?
Is a main clause.
And what kind of a sentence would it be?
Simple sentence.
Simple sentence. So what did you see in the way of a prepositional phrase?
On her head and a blue apron.
No, stop it right
Over
there.
Okay.
Tanneke Everpole is shown wearing a white milkmaid's cap on her head. Stop. And on her head answers,
On what?
or what is a good answer? Did anybody put anything else?
On
Where, what did you say, Ben? Where? I would
Where.
take either answer as being accurate. What else did you find, Maritza?
into the waistband.
Okay, stop on that one. Wearing a blue apron tucked into the waistband. Into the waistband answers.
Where?
Could be where. Could also people
what?
be what, right? Any more?
Of her red skirt.
And that clearly answers.
Where?
I don't think I get a where out of that. I'm going to back it up.
Into the
Tanneke Everpole is shown wearing a blue apron tucked into the waistband of her red skirt.
Of what?
What? Questions on that example, people? And again, you write them out. I'm being lazy. Scott?
Could you say that the subject was Tanneke Everpole instead of maid?
No. Circle the comma after maid and circle the comma after Everpole and mark this a renamer. Technically, it's called in a positive. We don't need to call it that. We can just call it a renamer. The idea is this. The first noun is going to be your core noun. So if this had read, Tanneke Everpole, comma, the family's maid, comma, is shown wearing a white milkmaid's cap, then the subject would have been Tanneke Everpole. But because it's maid and Tanneke Everpole is clearly a renamer, it's set off by commas. It's a renamer. It's non-essential information. Anybody else have a question about that particular example? And you can stop me on each one as we go through if you develop a question. Okay. So let's take a look at number 2. One of her household tasks is to pour a steady stream of thick, rich milk from a ceramic pitcher into a 2-handled earthenware bowl. Pippa, where's the subject?
Tasks.
I'm going to say no to that, and I'm going to ask you where the verb is.
Is to pour.
I'll take that. So if I said, what is to pour a steady stream, what would you say was the subject? You can't say tasks, because that isn't going to work.
Pitcher.
Okay, now let me ask you another question, and I'm going to get a check above that. This baseball season, for sure, you don't want to hit that third strike. Normally, when you look at a clause, would you expect to find the subject in the beginning, the middle, or the end?
Beginning.
I would too. Where's the subject?
Her.
Well,
I don't know.
no, it certainly can't be her, because if we say her went to the store and her had a good time, we're
Well,
in trouble.
it couldn't be anyway because it's a prep phrase.
Right.
So
Jerry?
You're
Where
asking me
is,
of all people?
there's one Jerry. Where is the subject of that, I want to say sentence?
Once again, you're asking me.
Sure.
Household.
Household. Well, these are fabulous guests,
one.
but it doesn't work. It must be what? It must be what?
One.
One, of course. So one is the subject, and is to pour. And Pippa, what kind of a clause is that?
main.
And I wonder what kind of a sentence it is.
Simple.
Now, let's see what you marked as prepositional phrases.
Well, I had marked of her household tasks.
Good, stay with it because you're right. And that's why all of these words are not subject words.
yeah.
They're part of a prepositional phrase. So if you back yourself into that particular one of her household tasks, answers,
What?
what? Put a what above that.
I guess what threw me off is sometimes in a prep phrase you can't have your subject, right?
Well, a prep phrase could be a subject, but it's not happening here because could you say this? Of her household tasks is to pour a steady stream. No way.
No.
But could you say this? One is to pour a steady stream. And if you ask yourself, one of what? You fill right into the function for prepositional phrases. That's what they do. They fill in those blanks. They answer the who, where, when, which, why, what. Do you see another prepositional phrase in that sentence,
Thick,
Pippa?
rich milk.
Okay, and that, let's back it up. To pour a steady stream of thick, rich milk. Answers?
What?
What? And then?
From a ceramic pitcher.
And that takes care of pitcher. From a ceramic pitcher, and that answers?
Where?
Let's back that up.
From where?
Maybe, don't help her, Maritza, to pour a steady stream of what? Of thick, rich milk from a
From what?
ceramic pitcher?
It could be from what, but couldn't it be from where?
I suppose it could. I'm seeing what as a stronger answer. What do you see next?
Into a 2-handled earthware bowl.
And what is that?
Earthenware bowl. That is into what?
That is into what? Clear? Questions? Jessica, do you have a question?
No, I just.
Anybody? Okay. All right, Janice, this one has your name on it. On a table in front of the bowl, the viewer sees a basket containing a loaf or two of freshly baked unsliced bread. Where's your subject?
Viewer,
How about your verb?
sees,
Kind of clause?
main clause,
Kind of sentence?
simple,
And what about a prep phrase?
on a table,
And that answers
what and where,
what or where, and then
in front of the bowl,
too much.
in front of,
Well, you know what? I'm going to take it the way you saw it. I was going to stop it with in front, but you're seeing that as a group preposition. I'm going to buy your answer. Read that phrase again.
in front of the bowl.
Okay. So on a table, let's take a what? On what? In front of the bowl. That's
What?
going to answer
What and where,
what or where. Take your pick. And then
of freshly baked unsliced bread.
of freshly baked unsliced bread. And that clearly is going to answer
What?
good. Good answers. Fine. Anybody with a question? Kim, look at this one with me, number 4. Next to a blue tablecloth hanging in casual folds at the edge of the table, there are crisp and enticing, realistically textured bread rolls. Now, I'm going to try and lead you to this easily. I want to know if you see a verb.
A verb?
And don't help her.
Is it hanging?
Did you say hanging? I don't think so. Kim, do you see a verb? I'm sorry, Jessica, do you see a verb?
At hanging.
Okay. How about you, Jeff?
I wasn't sure, but it's one of those ones where I think the subject will come first because of there.
Well, okay, you're right about the there, but in normal order, the subject comes first. Where do you say the verb is? I'm going to box that off and put a check above it. Do the same, because you're absolutely right. That's a watch-out word, but that's the very reason that I asked you to find the verb first. Where's your verb?
Crisp.
Can you say I crisp, you crisp, he crisp, we crisp? It's never going to hit a verb pattern. But you got something marked there that's important. Farrah, do you see a verb?
Are.
Are. That's what I wanted. Now get a V above it, and you can ask yourself a question. What are there, Jeff? And that should take you to the subject.
Crisp.
Oh, crisp
No.
aren't there.
Okay.
Ben, what are there?
Rolls or
Rolls.
Okay.
Absolutely. Rolls. You're absolutely right. This is your subject right over here. Now, what kind of a clause, Ben, is that?
main clause?
It is a main clause. And what kind of a sentence do we have? Before you do anything else, can you take that sentence and flip it around to normal word order? This is something we need practice on. Can you turn that around into normal word order?
There are crisp and enticing.
No, it's going to be inverted right now because you see the verb is coming in front of the subject, and normal word order, as you know, is subject before verb. Give it another try. All right, Jeff, give it a try. Put it in normal word order. It's going to start with your favorite word.
Crisp and enticing, realistic textures are bread rolls.
No, but you're on the right track. You didn't go far enough. You were definitely on the right track. Amy, read that to me really loud.
I just lost it. Oh, okay. Crisp and enticing, realistically textured bread rolls are there.
Sure. See that? Crisp and enticing, realistically textured bread rolls are there. And then you go back to the beginning. Next to a blue tablecloth, and take yourself all the way to the end. Kim and Jessica, hanging is a half verb. See that ing ending? So hanging in casual folds would turn out to be a verb phrase, not a prepositional one. Okay. Anybody with a question? Maritza?
Well, no, I have like an in casual fold as a preposition. I didn't check off the hanging as a
Okay,
verb
right.
phrase
We
because-
could have seen it either way. When we get into flip-flop phrases, we could have seen that either way. You're right. So I'm just going to say that hanging at the moment is a half verb, and I'm not going to take that complicated flip-flop pattern. So let's go for prep phrases. Jeff, what do you see?
To a blue tablecloth.
And to a blue tablecloth is going to answer.
Where? Or what?
I'll take a what. We don't really know where that tablecloth is placed. Next to what?
Okay.
And then what?
In casual folds.
And in casual folds, just looking at that separately, let me back into it. Next to what? To a blue tablecloth hanging in casual folds. And that's going to answer
What?
or people?
Where?
No?
How?
How.
Oh, how?
Right? Could be how.
Yeah.
Then what, Jeff?
Of the table.
Of the table is going to answer,
Of what?
and I think you left one out,
At the edge.
at the edge. And at the edge is going to answer
What?
or.
Where?
And then I have a question. $5 word here, enticing. What does it mean? Circle it, arrow it to the margin, try it in the back of the book. I don't know if you'll find it, but I'm sure I'll keep hammering away at this need to change reading habits and circling words when you're doing homework that you're not sure of or that you simply don't know. It should be under entice, E-N-T-I-C-E, is it? What does it mean?
To attract artfully or
Spell it.
adroitly.
Adroitly.
Adroitly or by arousing hope or desire.
Okay, so enticing, what's the word you're going to put here? One. I think you can get it down to one. What did you start to say when you read the beginning of that definition?
To attract.
Yeah. So wouldn't it be attractive, realistically textured bread rolls? Makes you want to eat them, that's the point. And I told you that the detail in the actual painting, never mind the slide representation, is so crystal clear that it looks like he just stuck the bread roll cut in half in the painting. It's an amazing painting. Questions on that? I'm sorry, Janice.
For number 4, could next to a blue tablecloth work?
You could tell me that that was a group preposition, and I'd certainly buy that. I'd say absolutely, take it either way. To a blue tablecloth next to, I would buy it either way. Let's try this one. But their appearance, this nice short, that's a good thing. Their appearance is deceptively simple. Jerry, where's your subject?
What isn't there?
I don't think it's there, and I'm going to call that strike one. I'm going to go to the verb. Where's the verb?
Is.
I'll take that for sure. Now, let me ask you a question. What is deceptively simple?
Once again, I'm going back to there, but it must be appearance.
Exactly. Okay. What kind of a clause do you have here?
Some main.
What kind of a sentence do you have?
Simple.
Don't anybody help him. How about a prepositional phrase?
But their appearance.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you a story. Let that sit for a minute. When you were growing up, did your mother ever read you the story of the Emperor's New Clothes? That fairy tale? I'm going to tell you now. I'm expanding your cultural horizons. I must be making a point. In that particular fairy tale, there's a rich emperor. He's very vain. He's got a closet full of clothes. It's never enough. So in the story, he hires these 2 tailors to make him an extraordinary suit of clothes. In fact, it's so extraordinary, they're going to weave the cloth before they cut it into pattern pieces. And the emperor and his courtiers can go in from time to time and check the work in progress. If they're stupid, they're not going to see much. So when they go in, they say, wow, I've never seen any cloth like that. In time, the cloth is woven, cut off the loom, made into clothes. The emperor, as his always does, is going to wear that new suit of clothing, go down the street, so all his townspeople can admire how great he looks, and the 2 tailors adjust the train, get him dressed, and split, as well they should. And when he walks down the street, all the people in the town go, ooh, ah, I have never seen any clothing like that, except one 10-year-old boy who says, what? What's the punchline of that story, Jerry?
He's bare butt naked.
That's right. And when you see it, I told you it was not an X-rated children's story yet. It's either drawn from the behind with the emperor wearing long johns and a crown on his head and not much more. I must be making a point. Don't anybody help Jerry with this point. Where is the prepositional phrase in that sentence?
But that's the only thing I can think of.
You sure?
As of right now, no.
Where's a prepositional phrase, Pippa, in that sentence?
You know, I'm kind of on the same page as him, but my guess would have been but there and ended it at that.
Vince, what was the emperor wearing in that story?
Nothing.
Yeah. So where's the prepositional phrase in that sentence, Vince?
Nothing.
Nothing. There is no prepositional phrase.
That was mean.
Was that me? I didn't invent this language. I'm just trying to help you understand it. Now here's the point highlighted in the book. It's right below that example. Highlight this, add it to the grammar review cassette tape that you're making. If a word acts as the subject of a clause, memorize this, it will not be the object of a prepositional phrase. And the subject role is the dominant one. You just have to know that. If a word acts as the subject of a clause, it will not be the object of a prepositional phrase. And what that tells you is this. The word but can be 2 different things.
A coordinate connective.
It can be a coordinate connective. It can be a preposition. But if this word appearance is acting as the subject of the clause, then this is obviously something else and not a preposition. If I said this to you, Jerry, everyone but Jim fell asleep. Where's your subject?
I don't know.
Where is it, Pippa? Everyone but Jim fell asleep.
Jim.
No, it's not Jim.
Everyone.
Where's your verb?
Bell.
What kind of a clause do you have?
Main.
What kind of a sentence is it?
Simple.
So, but Jim turns out to be?
Prep phrase.
But if I said, I went to the store, but I didn't have any money, then but is not a prep. It's a connective joining one clause of some kind to another clause. Do you see what I mean? It can be one or 2 things. Anybody with a question? We get that one cleared up? Okay, let's try this one. Vince, do this one for me. For those particular bread rolls are rendered with 3 distinct layers of paint. This is how he gets them so realistic. Where's your subject, Vince?
Rolls
Rolls. Where's your verb?
are
More than are.
rendered.
Are rendered. And what kind of a clause is that?
Main clause.
What kind of a sentence is it?
Simple.
How about a prep phrase?
With 3 distinct layers.
Okay, let's stop on that one for a minute. Those bread rolls are rendered with 3 distinct layers. That answers?
What?
What? And then?
Of paint.
And of paint surely answers?
What again?
What? Anything else?
For those particular.
Well, I don't think I'd stop it there. Does anybody see another prepositional phrase? Anybody in the room? Jessica?
I had for those.
For
That's
those.
it.
Anybody else? Justin?
I had the subject in the prepositional phrase.
Right. So, is there a prepositional phrase, Justin? That's the $64,000 question. No, it tells you, just as we saw a minute ago, that if, we didn't see it on that page, if a word acts as the subject of a clause, it's not going to be the object of a prepositional phrase. So, as it was before, so it is now. For can be more than one thing. And in this case, it's not a preposition because rolls is dominant and that is the subject of that clause. There's a song that Judy Garland made famous in a show called Girl Crazy, and the lyrics to one of the songs that she sang went like this. They're writing songs of love, but not for me. Now there, for me is a prepositional phrase. Yesterday I went to the store for I ran out of bread. That's not, because for is followed by a complete clause with a complete subject and a complete word. So we know that the words for and but can be something other than prepositions. They can be more than one function that those words apply to. Question? Yvonne, anybody? All right, let's try this. Yvonne, try this. A recent X-ray analysis of Vermeer's painting shows a thick layer of lead white paint used for the underpainting of the canvas. What would you say the subject is?
Analysis.
And how about the verb?
Shows.
And the kind of clause?
Main clause.
The kind of sentence?
Simple sentence.
And where's your first prep phrase?
Of Vermeer's painting.
So let's back that up. A recent X-ray analysis of Vermeer's painting answers
What?
what? And then?
Of lead white paint.
Of lead white paint. Shows a thick layer of lead white paint. And that answers?
What?
What? And then?
For the underpainting.
Used for the underpainting. And that answers?
What?
What? And then?
Of the canvas.
And that answers?
What?
Yes. Anybody a question? Any confusion on that? Okay. So the bottom layer of those biscuits is white. Let's see what we get next. The next layer of paint reveals a coat of a thin reddish glaze, referred to by Greet as false colors, allowing particles of the original white paint to poke through to the surface at various intervals. Elbelin, where's a subject?
Next layer.
Layer. And where's your verb?
Reveals.
And what kind of a clause do you have?
Main.
What kind of a sentence is this?
Simple.
How about a prep phrase?
Of paint.
And of paint answers
What?
what? Give me another one.
Of a thin reddish glaze.
Of a coat of a thin reddish glaze. And that answers,
What?
and then what?
To by Greet.
Not referred to. Referred to is going to be a verb of some kind. Let's just look at this part. By Greet. That's going to answer
Who?
who. And then?
As false colors.
And as false colors is going to answer,
What?
and then?
Of the original white paint.
And that's going to answer,
What?
and then?
To poke through.
Where's your next one?
To the surface.
To the surface is going to answer,
Where?
no, to poke through to the surface. It's not where.
What?
What? I think it's a clear what on that. And then,
At various intervals.
and at various intervals is going to answer
What?
or, what's good?
When?
Or, anybody?
When.
What'd you say, Janice?
When?
When? Now stop right there for just a second. And I want to back up to this one. You wanted to call that an infinitive. I say no. Why would I say no? Ben, why would I say no?
On calling that an infinitive?
Good.
I'm not
And an
sure.
infinitive is what?
I don't know.
Well, you got the right name, but you don't know why you called it. Jeff?
I'm not totally sure on that.
Farah? Is to poke through a prep phrase?
Yes.
Yes? Amy?
No.
Why not?
The verb.
Because to poke is a verb. So this is a half verb, right? And therefore that one is not going to qualify. Anybody else with a question on that? Anybody?
Carol,
Yes,
can I parenthesize through to the surface?
you could.
Like in a whole group?
Yeah, I would buy
Okay.
that. Take it either way. To the surface, through to the surface. You're going to get a what in either case. Yes, good eye. Anybody else? Yes, Scott.
To by greet is actually the object of a verb phrase, right? Referred to by greet, but we're going to
Right,
get into
and
that
I'm just
later.
avoiding that because we haven't talked about those half verbs, so we just pick out this little tiny part of it that is a prep phrase, which would be acting as the object of that verb phrase if we were up to flip-flop patterns, and we haven't quite gotten to that point yet. Anybody else? All right, so we have a white layer, we have a red layer. Now look at this. On the top layer, highlights of white and yellow paint have been added by the artist to give those bread rolls a mouth-watering appearance. Scott, where's your subject?
Highlights
And your verb?
have been added,
And the kind of clause?
main,
Kind of sentence?
simple,
How about a prep phrase?
on the top layer,
On the top layer answers,
where? Or-
could be
or what?
where or what. And then?
Of white and yellow paint,
Of white and yellow paint. And that answers,
what?
and then?
By the artist,
And that answers
who?
who? And then? That's it?
That's it.
Anybody see anything else that we left out? Ben?
A mouth-watering appearance?
Well, where's your preposition in a mouth-watering appearance? I don't think I'll buy that. Anybody see anything else? We leave something out? Yeah, Jerry?
To give those bread rolls?
Yeah, let's just stop. Don't help him out. Let's just see if he can figure that out. It surely would go to give those bread rolls if it were a prep phrase. I don't think it is a prep phrase, Jerry. Why not?
No clue.
Sure you do, because we just said this 5 minutes ago. Maritza?
To is following by the verb, which is give.
So this is a half verb. Watch out for that. We talked about it the other day, and it's a real easy thing to stumble over. You've got that marked in your book. To followed by a noun or a pronoun is a prepositional phrase. To me, to you, to the movies, to the park. But to followed by a verb is not. To go home, to eat lunch, to read a book, to write an essay. Those are going to be verb phrases and not prepositional ones. Anybody with a question? Okay, let's try 10. At the base of Vermeer's painting and off to one side, there is a wooden box with holes on the top side of it. Ben, where's the subject of this? No, I cancel my question. I want the verb.
There is?
Just one word, nail it, the verb only.
There?
No,
No, is.
It's got to be is. Get 2 lines under is, get a V above it. Would you once again draw a box around there? Would you get a check above it? Would you highlight it? It's a watch out word. Having located the verb is, you can ask yourself a question based on that verb to lead you to the subject. What is there?
Box.
Good. And what kind of a clause is that?
Main.
What kind of a sentence do we have?
Simple.
And how about a prep phrase?
To one side.
I'll take off to one side. Let me just back that up a minute. And off to one side, that's going to answer
Where?
could be where. What else could it be?
What?
What? Find another one for me.
On the top side.
on the top side, let me back into that one again, is a wooden box with holes on the top side. And that's going to answer
Where?
where, or
What?
And then
Of it.
of it. That definitely answers
What?
what? More.
At the. Of Vermeer's painting?
Of Vermeer's painting. At the base of Vermeer's painting. Answers
What?
what? More.
At the base?
At the base. And at the base answers
Where?
or
What?
what? Still have another one.
That's all.
And we've marked almost everything in that sentence.
With holes?
Sure. Back it up. A wooden box with holes.
What?
Sure. Now again, if these prepositions are solid, you can go through these and find them in order. And one of the things I want you to get yourself beyond today is a pencil, really, with a weird color. Chartreuse, hot pink, fuchsia, hot orange. And I want you to use it for one thing from this day forward. Just get rid of the prep phrases. I mean, today we're practicing. But after today, at the speed that I'm reading to you, you ought to be able to just put parentheses around those prep phrases and get them right out of your line of vision. This is a grammatical tool, right? And it gets rusty if you don't use it. And you have to use it or you're going to mistake the object of a phrase for the subject of a clause. Now, let's take a look at this next example called, but it is not an ordinary box. Amy, where's a subject?
It
And how about your verb?
is
And what kind of a clause is that?
main,
What kind of a sentence is it?
simple,
I want to hear pins drop. Don't anybody help her. Where is a prepositional phrase?
there are none.
Good. Did you all see that?
Yeah.
Because if it is acting as the subject of a clause, it will not at the same time be the object of a prepositional phrase, and the subject role is dominant. Inside of it, there is a small bowl. Justin, where's my verb?
Bowl?
I bowl. You know that does work as a verb if you're talking about going down to a set of bowling lanes and holding a bowling ball in your hands. But here, bowl is a noun. It's not a verb. Don't you help him. Where is the verb?
Well, since it's there is, wouldn't the verb be after? I mean, the subject be after that?
I have no idea. Pippa, where's the verb?
Is.
Now, stop. You're right about this, Justin. Every
got it
time you
backwards,
see,
that's why.
every time you see there, it's a watch out word. This is a verb here. And the first thing you do is box it off. Doesn't always create an inversion, but it sure does a lot of the time. You box it off, you put a check above it. If you can locate the verb like we just did, you ought to be able to ask yourself a question based on that verb. What is there? Now, where's the subject, Justin?
Bowl?
Bowl. So what kind of a clause is it?
Main?
And what kind of a sentence is it?
Simple?
And how about a prep phrase?
Inside of it?
And there's a group preposition for sure. And inside of it is going to answer
Where?
or
What?
what. Good. That's right. So what we're talking about is this box on the floor, right? And on the top layer, there are holes. And over here, there's a little bowl. And in that bowl, this is the way you keep your feet warm. You put coals or something, and then you put your feet on top of that box on a cold winter's day. They didn't have any central heating. I imagine it gets kind of cold in Holland in the winter. On a cold winter's day, hot coals from the fireplace will be placed inside the bowl to send heat through the surface of the wooden hole-covered box lid. Maritza, where is your subject?
Calls
How about your verb?
will be placed.
What kind of a clause?
Main clause.
What kind of a sentence?
Simple sentence.
How about a prep phrase?
On a cold winter's day.
So that will answer
On what?
or,
When?
and then
From the fireplace.
hot coals from the fireplace. That answers
What?
or,
Where?
where. And then
Inside the bowl.
Inside the bowl will be placed inside the bowl, and that answers
Where?
or,
What? Through
And
the
then?
surface.
through the surface,
Through what?
what? And then?
Of the wooden hole cover box lid.
And that answers,
Of what?
Jerry, did we leave anything out?
Not that I can see.
Does anybody see anything we left out?
To send.
To send. Actually, more than to send. Pick this whole thing up, Jessica, and tell me about it. To send heat. Is that a prepositional phrase?
No, because the verb. is in-
Okay, so to send is another one of those half verbs, which makes that a verb phrase rather than a prepositional one. Scott?
You said that through the surface answers the question what, doesn't it also answer the question where?
Yes. Somebody else? Good. The box will then be placed on the floor under someone's feet to serve as a foot warmer. Amy, where's the subject?
Box
Where's the verb?
will then be placed.
I then, you then, he then, we then. Where's that verb?
Will be placed.
Will be placed. And what kind of a clause is it?
Main.
What kind of a sentence is it?
Simple.
How about a prep phrase?
The floor.
On the floor. The box will then be placed on the floor. On the floor answers
Where.
or
What.
what. So this could be a where or a what. Now what?
Under someone's feet.
Under someone's feet can be
What.
or,
Where.
then what?
As a foot warmer.
And as a foot warmer is going to be
What.
yes. Anything else?
No.
No, because to serve is another one of those half verbs. Next to the baseboard above the kitchen floor, the artist painted a series of blue and white Delft tiles showing individual figures carrying the tools of their trade and honoring the tile makers engaged in the production of one of Holland's most cherished products. So, Yvonne, a subject.
We're on number 15. Oh, I'm sorry. Artist.
About the verb
Painted.
and the kind of clause,
Main clause.
the kind of sentence.
Simple sentence.
How about a prep phrase?
To the baseboard.
And to the baseboard is going to answer
What.
or.
Where.
And by the way, if you wanted to say, Janice, next to the baseboard, that would be okay too. Where's your next one, Yvonne?
Above the kitchen floor.
Above the kitchen floor is going to be
I said where.
or,
What.
either one. And then,
Of blue and white Delft tiles.
and that's going to answer
What.
what? And then,
Of their trade.
and that's going to answer
What.
what? And then,
In the production.
and that's going to answer
What.
definitely what? And then,
Of one.
of one, and that answers,
I said what.
and then,
Of Holland's most cherished products.
and that answers
What.
yes. Absolutely. I was looking at some Delftware on the internet the other day. I looked at it in the porcelain pottery factory, and it's incredibly expensive, but it's so beautiful and it's so labor intensive to make. Let's take a look at the image of a painter at work. As you can see by looking at that particular image, this painter is painting pottery. She has a finished platter off to one side, very, very, very detailed. Apprentice tile makers would just be doing the edges, maybe if it were some little simple curlicue, but she's doing the complicated baskets of fruit or whatever else the image might call for. She does about 4 of these a day, including time stopped where she talks to people and allows them to take photographs of her. Very, very detailed, labor-intensive work. Her eyes must be extremely good. Yvonne, did you have a question about this Delftware?
Yes, how expensive is the Delftware?
Well, it varies. It does vary. But this is an example of Delftware, something that they make that's really very beautiful. You actually can access it on the website if you go to their pottery factory in Holland. This is called a tulipier, and the idea is you put tulips in each one of these places. Well, I saw a place in San Francisco that sold these for about $14, and I thought not bad. But at the Delft Pottery factory, it's going to be more like $400 to $600. But they're beautiful, and they're incredibly more detailed. All you have to do is look at one, an image of one, and you'll see the difference. They do have also small things that you can buy that are fairly inexpensive, but the gorgeous, beautiful pieces, they're very expensive. Let's take a look at sentence number 16. In 1975, continuing the tradition of one artist paying tribute to another artist's work, Wim T. Shippers carved a three-dimensional life-sized version of the milkmaid out of wood for the city of Delft to mark the 300th anniversary of Vermeer's death. Jeff, let's try this. Where is the subject?
Wim T. Shippers.
Shippers, I think. And how about the verb?
Carved.
And the kind of clause?
Main clause.
And the kind of sentence?
Simple sentence.
Right. And how about a prep phrase?
Of one artist paying tribute.
Too much.
Of one artist.
Of one artist. So let's just back it up. In 1975, continuing the tradition of one artist, and that would answer?
Of what?
Right. And you would want to stop it after artist because that's your noun object. You wouldn't go past it. Where's your next one?
To another artist's work.
And tribute to another artist's work, that one would answer?
To what?
To what? And then?
Of the milkmaid.
Let's back that one up. Carved a three-dimensional life-size version of the milkmaid, and that answers?
Of what?
What? Because it's a what, not a who, because we're talking about the painting.
Oh,
This is his three-dimensional interpretation of a two-dimensional flat surface painting. Where's the next one, Jeff?
Out of wood.
Out of wood, and that's going to answer?
What?
What? And then?
For the city.
And that's going to answer?
For what?
For what? And then?
Of Delft.
And that's going to answer?
Of
For-
what?
Yes. Anything else?
Of Vermeer's death.
Of Vermeer's death, and that's going to answer?
What?
Anything else?
That's all I have.
I think he left one out, Kim. What did he leave out?
In 1975?
In 1975, and that answers?
When?
When? Did he leave out anything else, anybody? Jerry?
I'm just curious, to mark the 300th anniversary, or
You
to
fell right into the pit.
again,
To mark
to
the
mark.
300th anniversry is what?
It's a whole phrase, but I was just wondering about to mark.
I do too. I wonder about that. What is to mark?
Would it be a prep phrase?
No.
Never mind.
Right because of to mark. No, this is about the third stumble. We got to get this one corrected. What is that, Janice? To mark is what?
Half verb.
A half verb. And I'm going to say it again. To, followed by a verb of any kind, is going to give you a verb and not a prep. So to drive my car, to take a break, to eat lunch, those are going to be verb phrases and not prep phrases. Can somebody throw at me the page that we have that distinction, to followed by a noun or a pronoun creates a prepositional phrase? What page is it, Janice?
Page 90.
Page 90? Just go back to page 90 for a second. And just make a note, reread that page. That's the note, because I'm reminding you what it says. Watch out for to. To, followed by a noun or a pronoun, is going to give you a prepositional phrase. But to, followed by a verb, is going to give you a verb phrase. Maritza?
No, it's on the page 88.
Page 88.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
page
a
88.
to plus a verb,
That's right.
plus a noun and pronoun.
Right.
object.
So
Okay.
I would make a note, and I would go back and review that, because it's a place you're going to trip over and over again until you get it straight. Absolutely. Let's take a look at the image of Wim Schipper's version of the milkmaid. It's sort of tan. It's made of wood. It's very roughly cut. It sort of looks like the milkmaid. It's definitely three-dimensional. It's in one part of Delft that you can walk to. Some people don't feel it's quite as successful as the painting was, but it's an interesting sculpture. Okay, so who has a question? Anybody? Well, I have one more thing I would like to do in terms of prepositional phrases, and we can get a start on that and see how far we go. If you would go to page 97 to 99. We're going to take a look at some excerpts from an interview with Tracy Chevalier. You remember that she's the author of Girl with a Pearl Earring that was conducted by Gavin Grant. You know, I suggested to you both in studio and also on a memo that you might consider reading her book. Has anybody started to read her book or bought it? It's been a bestseller. You can go in any bookstore and you'll see it. You'll see the painting and you'll be led right to it. I don't think you'll put it down. But this is her talking about that particular painting. And this is what she says. I'm sitting in my office and Vermeer's painting Girl with a Pearl Earring is hanging right in front of me. My sister had a poster of the painting. When I was 19, I visited her in Boston and I saw it and loved it so much. What do you see, Pippa? By way of prepositional phrases.
Okay, in my office.
So let's back that one up. I'm sitting in my office, and that answers
In what or where?
or where. Maritza, where's the next one?
In front?
Well, take it further.
Well, in front of me.
Yeah, let's see that as a group preposition. So here's this painting hanging right in front of me, and that answers?
In front of what?
And I agree, you could have broken that into two, your call. It's either two or a group preposition. Jerry, where's the next one?
I don't know why you asked me.
Oh, pick out an easy one.
I don't know. I don't see anything. So I went out.
No, that's a clause and not a phrase.
know.
Yvonne, where's a prep phrase?
I said with a pearl earring.
I would have said with a pearl earring. Girl with a pearl earring, and that answers
What?
what? And Vince, where's another one? Janice, do you see one?
Of the painting?
Of the painting. My sister had a poster of the painting, and that answers
What?
what? Justin, where's another one?
In Boston?
In Boston answers,
What?
when I was 19, I visited her in Boston.
Yeah.
It's going to be a where, right? Okay. And I saw it and loved it so much. I don't think we missed any. I'd never seen it before, so I went out and got one for myself. I've carried it with me wherever I go. It's always hung wherever I've lived, usually in the bedroom, but now she's in the office. It's the same poster. It's really faded and old. Yvonne, where's the first one you see?
I'm sorry, I've never seen it before. For myself.
For myself. And for myself answers,
I said for who?
I would have said who. She's definitely a person. Amy, where's the next one?
With me.
With me. And that answers
Who?
who? And Ben, where's the next one?
I go.
I go, did you say? No, that's going to be a clause of some kind. Find another one for me.
Always hung.
But always, unfortunately, is not a prep, and hung is not a noun object. Elbelin, where's the next one?
In the bedroom?
In the bedroom. Let's back that up just a bit. It's always hung wherever I've lived, usually in the bedroom. And that answers
Where?
or
What?
what? Scott, where's the next one?
In the office?
Now she's in the office, and that's going to answer
What or where?
what or where. Farrah, where's the next one? Is there any other one there?
No.
No. Okay, let's go to the next page. Yes.
What about but now?
Well, if we take a look at but now, if I can ever find it here, is now a noun or pronoun?
Nope.
Then it's not going to be a prep phrase. So let's take a look at this next part. There was an exhibition of Vermeer in 1995, 1996 in The Hague, and I thought, maybe now's the time to renew the poster. So I got a new one. I put it up, but it just looked so clean and dark and spanking new, I couldn't do it. I took it down and put the old one back up. Farrah, where's your first prep phrase?
Of Vermeer.
Of Vermeer. And that answers
Who?
well, maybe, or I almost want to say what. It's a who if we're talking about the person, but what because we're talking about a painting. I think your who is the better answer. Jeff, where's the next one?
In 1995, 1996.
Right? And that answers
When?
when. And Jessica, where's the next one?
In the Hague.
In The Hague, and that answers
Where?
where? Kim?
To renew.
Oh, to renew the poster is what?
Oh, to renew is a helping.
Yes, to renew is a half verb, so that gives us a verb phrase. Give it another try. What do you say? Remember the Emperor's New Clothes?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay, Tracy next says, I like the old fadedness of it. It's not framed nicely. It's in those white plastic things that you push along the edges with a string to hang it. Maybe I ought to do something in honor of it, but maybe that would kind of ruin it if I had it nicely framed. And again, she's talking about this old poster she's had since she was 19 years old. Pippa, where's the first prepositional phrase that you see?
I have of it.
And of it answers
What?
what? Maritza, where's the next one?
In those?
It's going to be more than in those.
In those white plastic things.
Right. And that will answer
What?
what? Yvonne, where's the next one?
Along the edges?
Along the
I
edges.
said where?
It could be where, and what else could it be?
What?
What? Janice, where's the next one?
With a string.
With a string. And that answers
What?
Vince, where's the next one?
Of it.
Of it. And that answers
What?
what? Farah, where's the next one?
In honor.
In honor. And that answers
What?
what? Jeff, what else do you see?
If I had,
If I had, this is a subject, this is a verb. Must be some kind of a clause. Prep phrases? Right. And if you don't see any, they're not there.
There is one there.
Is there another one? Did we miss one? Where is it, Maritza?
Of ruin?
Of ruin. And maybe that would kind of ruin.
Ruin it.
Yeah, you know what? It's because she's really got the wrong word there. Maybe that would kind of ruin. Well, wait, take it a little bit further. Of ruin it. Okay, take that. And of ruin it, let's back that up. That would kind of ruin it.
Of what?
What? That was an odd one. Let's take a look at another image of Girl with a Pearl Earring. This one was painted by my cousin. Notice it's Girl with a Pearl Earring. She did it in 1980, but the problem is there's no earring. She didn't realize that was an important thing. She did a copy of it, but it's another interpretation of that painting. The point is, Tracy Chevalier has this old ratty poster that she's been carrying around since she was 19. I've had this painting done by my cousin that she was going to throw out for a very long time, and it's one of my very favorite paintings, never thinking that one day I'd be doing a book based on Vermeer.
We had some questions from the.
Did we? Where is the question? Janice.
In honor of it, but maybe, would that be
No,
considered-
because maybe, I've got to find that again. It's the same thing we had with but now. Maybe is not a noun.
Okay.
Yes, Vince?
Also, for ruin, isn't that a half verb?
Well, to ruin, I wouldn't argue with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sorry, my bad.
But of ruin, that was an iffy one.
Yeah, I was messed up on that. Sorry.
Okay, all questions answered? Let's do another round. Scott, we'll start with you. I'll read it first. I started researching by reading all of the catalog for the 1996 exhibition at The Hague. When I research a historical novel, it's a combination of research and writing at the same time because sometimes you don't really know, and that question is mid-sentence, but we'll finish in a minute. Scott, what do you see here?
Of the catalog?
Of the catalog, and that would answer
What?
what? And Elbelin, what do you see?
By reading all?
You know, I would have taken that, and I'll go back and make a point about it in a minute, but let's just see what it answers. I started researching by reading all, and that would answer
What?
what? Okay, now put a question mark above this one if you don't see it as a prepositional phrase today. You certainly would see it as one in another week or so. By is certainly a preposition. Reading is a half verb. So it's a prepositional phrase that starts with a preposition and has a verb phrase acting as the object. If you don't see it today, that isn't going to bother me, but that truly is a prep phrase. Ben, where's another one?
A historical novel.
No, because is not a preposition. Amy, what do you see?
Of research.
I researched? Is that what you said?
Of research.
Of research. Let's back that one up. It needs more. It's a combination of research and writing. Where are you going to end that?
And writing.
Two objects. So it answers
Oh. What?
what? What next, Farah?
At the Hague.
At the Hague. And at the Hague answers
Where?
where? Jeff, what else?
I was just totally lost.
You're lost? Jessica, what do you see?
For the 1996 exhibition.
Yes, be a lot louder. For the 1996 exhibition answers...
Where?
No, I don't get that. At the Hague is the where. I started researching...
What?
It's going to be a what. And by the way, this phrase up here, by reading all, could be a what? What else could it be? By reading all. Couldn't it be how? Could either be how, could be what. Kim, there's another prep phrase in here. What do you see?
At the same time.
At the same time. Let's back that up. It's a combination of research and writing what? At the same time. Answers
When?
no when.
Or what?
What? At what? At the same time. We'll finish that sentence because sometimes you don't really know what your questions are until you've started writing a bit. So I researched a bit, then I wrote a bit, then I researched a lot, and that's when I went to Delft. Pippa, what do you see?
Until?
Where would it end?
Wait. Okay. Scratch that. I don't see anything.
You see anything, Maritza?
No, I don't see anything.
Let me back this up one more time. You don't really know what your questions are until you've started writing a bit. So I researched a bit, then I wrote a bit, then I researched a lot, and that's when I went to Delft.
To Delft.
To Delft.
Okay.
And to Delft is answering
Where?
where? I spent 4 days in Delft, a couple of days in Amsterdam, and also The Hague, where the painting that inspired the novel is in a museum. There are a lot of 17th century buildings still left in Delft, and the structure of the town is still 17th century based. Vince, what do you see?
In Delft?
In Delft answers
Where?
where? Janice, what next?
Of days in Amsterdam.
Too much.
Of days.
And that answers
What?
what? Yvonne, what's next?
In Amsterdam?
And I
That's
want
it.
to say, and also The Hague.
Okay.
And what would that answer?
Where? That's what I would put.
Right. And Ben, what's next?
Is in a museum.
Too much.
Is in.
Is not a is
In a
is a
museum.
verb.
In a museum.
Say it again.
In a
In
museum.
a museum. So the painting that inspired the novel is in a museum. And that's going to answer
Where?
or
What?
what? Amy?
Of the town.
Of the town. That answers
What?
what? Elbelin?
In Delft.
And that answers
Where?
Scott?
Of the town?
We got that. We're missing one, I think.
How about of the 17th century
17th
building?
century
That's
buildings.
the one. And that answers
What?
what?
Question.
Question.
So prep phrases can have multiple objects, like in
Yes.
Amsterdam and also The Hague.
Yes. If I tell you I went to the store and bought a box of oranges and pears and apples, my prep phrase is going to be of oranges and pears and apples. Let's take a look at modern Delft today. You can see traces of 17th century architecture. It's all over the place. See that stepped roof? Typical. Those small shuttered windows, they're just like the homes that were around and very much like the one that Vermeer lived in at the time. And then going on, Tracy tells us it's built around a market square, the canal system and bridges. There are a lot of 17th century houses around, but there's a lot of the 20th century there, a lot of cars and signs and stuff. Kim, what do you see?
Of the 20th century?
Of the 20th century, and that answers
When?
no, there's a lot of the 20th century.
What?
What? So you back yourself into it, it's a lot easier. Jessica, what do you see? Good and loud.
Around a market square?
Around a market square, and that would answer
Where?
where or
What?
what. Scott, here's one for you to find in this sentence. What do you see? Anything at all? Scott, yeah? And I wanted to give this one to you because it's relevant to the question you just raised 5 minutes ago. Farrah, what do you see?
Of 17th century houses.
I see that. Of 17th century houses, there are a lot of 17th century houses, and that answers?
What?
What? You see one, Scott?
Of cars and signs
More?
and stuff.
That whole thing, three
Of
objects.
Cars and signs and stuff.
Right. A lot of cars and signs and stuff. And that would answer
What?
what? Well, there's another image I want you to look at, which is really newfangled, very new. This is an info stop route map from the Delft train station. You get off at the train stop and you wonder, how am I going to find my hotel? And you put a coin in a meter and you press up what you're looking for, and zip, out it comes with the streets you have to walk to get there from the train station. That's pretty modern. We don't have anything like that here. And then she says, you really have to squint to get past that, but you do get a sense of the older city by being there. Pippa, what do you see?
But you do get a sense?
No, where's a subject in what you just read? But you do get a sense. Where's a subject? And a verb?
Do.
So this tells us, actually do get,
Get.
that we're looking at some kind of a clause and certainly not a phrase. Try again.
Of the older city.
Of the older city is going to answer,
Of what? Or where?
no, of what?
Oh.
Of what? Anything else?
By being there?
Well, let's just take that with a
By
question
being is
mark.
a half, never
By
mind.
being there
Infinitive.
would be what? What would answer what?
By what? By,
By being there wouldn't answer what? What would it answer, Maritza?
Where?
Where?
thank you.
And it wants to be a prep phrase. It starts with a preposition. It has a half verb, but it doesn't even have an object. So I would call it a prep construction, but not really a phrase. You never do get down to a noun or pronoun object. And then another image that we can look at, again, is the Hotel Vermeer. And it's a very interesting place to go. It's totally decorated with Vermeer's paintings, copies of Vermeer's paintings, and then that dining room has that mural based on Girl with a Pearl Earring. Actually, it's where Tracy Chevalier stayed when she went, and it's where I stayed when I went. What were you going to say?
Question from the last example.
Yes?
Why are the words "the older cities" in brackets?
Because they're added to what she said. You really have to squint to get past that, but you do get a sense of, and I don't remember what the word she had was in there, but I changed it to the older city. So because I made an authorial change, I put it in brackets. You pick up a lot when you go to a place, for instance, in Girl with a Pearl Earring. I didn't know that there was that 8-pointed star in the middle of the market square, and I saw it when I was walking around and thought, that's interesting, but I didn't think much more about it. Yvonne, what do you see?
In girl.
In Girl, and that answers,
In what? I was sure that she.
yeah,
put
I
one
would
or
take
who.
what because we're talking about the title of a painting. What else do you see?
With a pearl earring?
And that answers,
With what?
and then back yourself up to the top line.
For instance,
No, for instance, is going to be a logical connective as it turns out. But there's still one that you missed in the top line. You pick up a lot when you go to a place.
To a place.
And to a place is going to answer what? Jeff, what do you see next?
Of the market square.
Of the market square, and that answers,
What?
and that is just a what. What else do you see? I didn't know that there was that 8-pointed star in the middle of the market square. Farah?
In the middle.
In the middle answers
Where?
where? Of the market square, what? Do you see anything else, Farah?
About it.
About it. And that's interesting, but I didn't think much more about it. Answers
What?
what?
Carol, before you
Yes.
take it, I have a question for you. Back to a place. Wouldn't go to be part of that verb? Possibly when you go to a place.
No, I get you, I
Go,
get go, I get a dependent clause out of
Right.
that and a prep phrase
We
following.
put, so go, so to wouldn't be part of that.
No.
Okay.
To a place definitely would be a prep phrase. Now, talking about that 8-pointed star, later on it wove its way into the novel. Things like that you don't really know until you get there. I'm not one of those people who plots every single detail out beforehand. Scott, where is a prep phrase?
Into the novel?
Answers
What?
or?
Where?
Yeah, either one I think would work on that. What do you see, Vince?
Could it also be a how?
I thought about that too.
No, into what
How
or
it
where?
wove its way?
It's
No.
not a process. Wove is, but not into the novel. Wove into what? Into the novel. What do you see, Vince?
Of these people?
Of these people, and that answers
What?
or who, either one, I suppose. Anything else? No, right? And then she ends by saying,
Wait, how about beforehand?
that beforehand, at most it's a prep
Okay.
without an object. So it would
Alright.
just be a prep. She ends up by saying, it's a combination of knowing where I'm going, knowing what the big moments are, but also the spontaneity of the daily writing. So Amy, what do you see?
Of the daily writing.
Of the daily writing for sure, and that answers
What?
what? Now, there would be a possibility of taking a really complicated construction like this, which we might do in
Yeah.
2 weeks from
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
of say, of knowing where I'm going, but that's a really complicated one because it winds up having a dependent clause act as its object, so we'll just put a question mark above that. All right, let's switch gears completely and do something different and take listening test number 2. You should enjoy this one. Remember the rules. I'm going to read a narrative to you, one you haven't heard before. And I don't want you to take notes. I do want you to use a tracking card. Make sure that your name is on the test sheet and that you just listen without taking notes. And then when I get to the reading of the questions, I'll read 2 times each question. And please circle the answer on the second reading. Low stress test. See how well you can stay tuned in to, I don't know, possibly a 10-minute reading. I called this one about reaching milestones. Rhonda Abrams, a reporter for the Reno Gazette, talks about the excitement she felt when she watched the San Francisco Giants play a very important baseball game on August 12, 2002. On that night, particular attention was paid to Barry Bonds, who plays left field for the San Francisco Giants. The 6 foot 2 inches tall baseball player, weighing in at 228 pounds, was born on July 24, 1964 in Riverside, California. And that night's game would be one that would make baseball history. People were cheering, fireworks were exploding, and music was blaring when Barry Bonds hit the 600th home run of his career. Rhonda Abrams was there. She said it was a thrilling experience. Baseball, she said, is a game of statistics. It's a game that appreciates and loves numbers. And that is what she thought about when she saw Barry Bonds hit home run number 600. It was a reminder of how important goals are to all of us. It was a reminder of how powerful it is to acknowledge when we have met certain targets or achieved certain levels of success. When you think about it, Barry's 600th home run was not much different from home run number 599. As a matter of fact, his team, the San Francisco Giants, lost the game to the Pittsburgh Pirates the night that Barry hit that historic home run. And with the 2002 close playoff race, every game that the Giants played was critically important. Yet no fireworks went off for home run number 599. And while the 600th home run baseball will be worth almost $1 million, the 599th home run baseball will not be worth much. When you realize that only 3 other players in the history of baseball, Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, and Willie Mays, have had 600 home runs, it helps you to understand how significant Barry Bonds' home run was. It was a way to acknowledge how he measured up to other baseball legends. And yet, the reach should always exceed the grasp. For Barry Bonds, there are more mountains to climb, more peaks to reach. As a member of the exclusive 600 Club, Barry will have more numbers to pass. Hank Aaron hit a lifetime total of 755 home runs. Babe Ruth hit 714, and Barry Bonds' godfather, Willie Mays, hit 660 home runs. Milestones and goals are important to all of us, says Rhonda Abrams, not just baseball players. All of us are motivated to work towards specific numerical targets. They keep us going when we would like to quit. They let us know when we have reached a certain level of achievement. They help each of us to acknowledge how we measure up to a given standard, and yet we rarely find ways to acknowledge our progress. There are all kinds of achievements you can set as milestones for yourself. If this is your first year in college, one observance might be the first quarter that you finish each of the courses you set out to take. If you are in the process of earning a 4-year degree, an observance might be to mark the halfway point by graduating from a community college with an Associate of Arts degree in the field of your choice. The key is to set a specific target that is meaningful and important. Then, get your friends and your family members to support you in achieving those goals. Human beings have a need to be part of something bigger than themselves, to be part of a group, to be part of a community. When Barry Bonds hit his 600th home run, the fans in the stands were thrilled that they were there to share his achievement. But realistically, it was not the achievement of any one of those fans. They did not do anything to help Barry hit those home runs, except perhaps to buy tickets to the game and to cheer a lot. Yet just being there and being part of it all made each fan feel that somehow he or she was part of something big and something memorable. In your own life, try to set goals that get every member of your support group pulling in your direction. That can be powerful, and don't forget to celebrate. You don't need fireworks and marching bands, but you do need to find ways to acknowledge your success. Such celebrations may be simple, such as being an honored guest at a graduation party, or they can be elaborate, like rewarding yourself by taking a trip to a foreign country you always wanted to visit. You might even give your closest friends a tangible memento of the achievement. It's nice to have physical reminders of your success. The San Francisco Giants gave all the fans in attendance a pin marking the occasion of Barry Bonds' 600th home run. Says Rhonda Abrams, the reporter for the Reno Gazette, I know I'll keep mine as a reminder of a very special night. 2 readings of question. Number 1, Barry Bonds hit his 600th home run for the San Francisco Giants on A, August 2nd, 2002, B, August 21st, 2002, C, August 12th, 2002, D, August 28th, 2002, E, September 13th, 2002. No information. Barry Bonds hit his 600th home run for the San Francisco Giants on A, August 2nd, 2002, B, August 21st, 2002, C, August 12th, 2002, D, August 28th, 2002, E, September 13th, 2002, F, no information. Number 2, that historic game was played against A, the Pittsburgh Pirates, B, the San Diego Padres, C, the Los Angeles Dodgers, D, the New York Yankees, E, the Atlanta Braves, F, no information. That historic game was played against A, the Pittsburgh Pirates, B, the San Diego Padres, C, the Los Angeles Dodgers, D, the New York Yankees, E, the Atlanta Braves, F, no information. Number 3, Willie Mays is a member of the 600 Club who hit A, 714 home runs, B, 755 home runs, C, 725 home runs, D, 606 home runs, E, 660 home runs, F, no information. Willie Mays is a member of the 600 Club who hit A, 714 home runs, B, 755 home runs, C, 725 home runs, D, 606 home runs, E, 660 home runs, F, no information. Number 4, Barry Bonds' godfather is A, Hank Aaron, B, Willie McCovey, C, Willie Mays, D, Benito Santiago, E, Babe Ruth, F, no information. Barry Bonds' godfather is A, Hank Aaron, B, Willie McCovey, C, Willie Mays, D, Benito Santiago, E, Babe Ruth, F, no information. Number 5, Bonds' 600th home run was a reminder to all of us that A, he loves playing baseball, B, practice makes perfect, C, it is important to go to live games, D, goals are important, E, he is a superior player, F, no information. Bonds' 600th home run was a reminder to all of us that A, he loves playing baseball, B, practice makes perfect, C, it is important to go to live games, D, goals are important, E, he is a superior player, F, no information. Number 6, Bonds' 599th home run baseball is worth A, almost $1 million, B, more than $1 million, C, not very much, D, $500,000, E, $250,000, F, no information. Bonds' 599th home run baseball is worth A, almost $1 million, B, more than $1 million, C, not very much, D, $500,000, E, $250,000, F, no information. Number 7, the current number of baseball players who are members of the 600 Club are A, 3 players, B, 4 players, C, 5 players, D, 6 players, E, 7 players, F, no information. The current number of baseball players who are members of the 600 Club are A, 3 players, B, 4 players, C, 5 players, D, 6 players, E, 7 players, F, no information. When you have achieved a personal goal, you should A, set off some fireworks, B, hire a marching band, C, cross it off your list, D, celebrate the occasion in a special way, E, keep it to yourself, F, no information. When you have achieved a personal goal, you should A, set off some fireworks, B, hire a marching band, C, cross it off your list, D, celebrate the occasion in a special way, E, keep it to yourself, F, no information. Number 9, working toward a specific numerical target, A, is only important for baseball players, B, is not important at all, C, is just a part of statistics, D, makes life confusing, E, discourages most people, F, no information. Working toward a specific numerical target, A, is only important for baseball players, B, is not important at all, C, is just a part of statistics, D, makes life confusing, E, discourages most people, F, no information. Number 10, each fan who was in the stadium to witness Barry Bonds' 600th home run was given A, a souvenir baseball, B, a Giants baseball cap, C, a ticket to the next home game, D, a free can cooler, E, a souvenir pin, F, no information. Each fan who was in the stadium to witness Barry Bonds' 600th home run was given A, a souvenir baseball, B, a Giants baseball cap, C, a ticket to the next home game, D, a free can cooler, E, a souvenir pin, F, no information. Please exchange papers with each other.
Question?
You can't get a third reading.
No. On these multiple choice answers, if an answer that you read made more sense to me than the author's answer, I still write what the author wrote.
And this is the author. Definitely, you're right what the author wrote. Okay, put your names at the bottom, people. And again, keep your eyes glued to the paper that you're responsible for. Put a C next to the number if the answer's right, and X if it's wrong. Let's see how you did. Number 1, Barry Bonds hit his 600th home run for the San Francisco Giants on C, August 12th, 2002. Number 2, that historic game was played against A, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Number 3, Willie Mays is a member of the 600 Club who hit E, 660 home runs. Number 4, Barry Bonds' godfather is C, Willie Mays. Number 5, Bonds' 600th home run was a reminder to all of us that D, goals are important. Number 6, Bonds' 599th home run baseball is worth C, not very much. Number 7, the current number of baseball players who are members of the 600 Club are B, 4 players. Number 8, when you have achieved a personal goal, you should D, celebrate the occasion in a special way. Number 9, working toward a specific numerical target, F, no information. Each fan who was, this is number 10, who was in the stadium to witness Barry Bonds' 600th home run was given E, a souvenir pin. Count the numbers right, put the number up in the upper left-hand corner, and just hang on to these. I'll collect them at the end of the lecture. Anybody get a grade of paper with a perfect score? My friend Jeff had to be close. He was a baseball aficionado, and he knew just how many home runs Willie Mays hit in a lifetime career. All right, I want to switch gears with you people, and I want to go back and see how far we can get into the complex sentence, because some memory work is required from you before we get to our next lecture. So if you would go back to page 101 in setting up the palette, I'm giving you some things I have to ask you to memorize completely before I see you on the next lecture. For starters, of course, and please highlight, would be the definition that you find on page 101. Here it is. A complex sentence contains one main or independent clause and at least one subordinate or dependent clause. You've got to know that. Memorize it, highlight it, add it to your cassette grammar review tape. I want you to notice something. Main and independent mean exactly the same thing. And in the same way, subordinate and dependent mean exactly the same thing. So if I asked you, books closed, to tell me on the next lecture what is a complex sentence, and Amy said it's one main clause and one or more dependent clauses, and if Ben said it's one independent clause and one or more subordinate clauses, they would have said the very same thing. The next thing you need to memorize right away is the definition of a dependent clause. A dependent clause contains a complete subject, a complete verb, and a third component, a subordinate connective. As you know, all clauses contain a complete subject and a complete verb, but the dependent clause has this third component, a subordinate connective. And I want you to highlight the note. I'm going to give you a little bit of added information here, but I want you to highlight the fact that a dependent clause is preceded by a subordinate connective 100% of the time. There is no exception. The moment you tell me you're looking at a dependent clause, my next question is, where is the subordinate? And preceded by means what, Vince? Is that dependent, is the subordinate connective go at the beginning, the middle, at the end of a dependent clause? I guess the magic is in that word preceded. Janet, where's it going?
Could you repeat the question?
What does preceded mean? I have a new one.
Before?
Before. So if it says a dependent clause is preceded by a subordinate connective 100% of the time, Vince, is the subordinate connective in the front, in the middle, at the end of the dependent clause? In the front, always. Now, I had a little note to talk to you about the meaning of the prefix sub. Always means less than. If we say subtract 6 from 10, you're going to get a smaller number, aren't you? 4. If we talk about a submarine, it's talking about a ship that can go beneath the level of the water, right, under the ocean. If we talk about a subway, that word sub means less than, underground. If you come from a country or visit a country like Korea, They're terribly traffic-laden streets. Russia's another one, London's another one. And there are lots of places where you can walk down a flight of stairs and walk under a walkway. In Korea, you often pass a number of interesting shops along the way, climb up another flight of stairs, and you cross that street and you didn't have to deal with the bicycles and the taxi cabs and the cars. I just got to look at some nice shop windows with some jewelry in them. The subway, less than, below ground level. So now it leads us into the next aspect that you need to memorize, and that is the function of a dependent clause. Highlight this. A dependent clause always presents secondary, less important information. Always. And as a result, and I'll come back to this example on cigarette smoking in just a second, it is the key to controlling reader focus. So we'll talk about that. In my opinion, and we're talking about function now, somebody's trying to control your focus just about every waking minute of the day. Supermarket close to the college, I think it used to be called Alpha Beta. I used to shop there a lot. And it was typical of supermarkets. They have analyzed your shopping habits, the people who do the marketing, so you don't have to worry about it. When you go in, you almost automatically follow what the marketing people planned out for you to do. Most people are right-handed. So what happens when you go into a supermarket, such as the one I just described, is you make a right-hand turn and you walk smack into the bakery. They know that, and they know that if you're hungry, or if you're with a child that's hungry, you're going to buy a half a dozen, I don't know, Halloween cookies, Christmas cookies, depending on the season, and you're going to eat those before you leave the store. In that store, after a while, I saw some smart marketing person come by and say, if we had a deli before the bakery, then if they didn't have lunch, they could make a salad or a sandwich and then go to the bakery and then buy the cookies or the donuts, and I'm sure they sold a lot of salads and sandwiches and cookies. In that store, you used to be able to walk all the way around to the end. I mean, here was your entrance over here, and here was the bakery, and here was the deli, and over here was where they had liquor, a little tiny area for liquor. I'm sure almost nobody bought one because you would have gone all the way around the store before you got there and got ready to check out. Well, some marketing person said, you know what, I bet if we put 2 aisles of liquor right in back of the deli and the bakery, we'd sell more liquor, and I'm sure they did. Empty basket? You're going to put in some beer, some wine that you might or might not need that you wouldn't if you got all the way over here with a full basket. They know that. If you're on a weight loss program, Jenny Craig comes to mind, one of the things you're taught is shop the walls. They say stick to the walls. Why would that be? Everything you need is on the perimeter of the store. The fruit, the yogurt, the vegetables, and they say stay away from the center. Why is that? Because everything you don't need is there, like potato chips, like cheesecake, like candies, like desserts. And they say if you have to pick something up in the center, run to the walls, because that's where you're supposed to be. Now, as you go wheeling your cart, and perhaps a child in it, through the aisles of the grocery store, again, your focus is controlled. Remember that children watch television a lot, and they become walking pitchmen for television advertisers. When my twins were young and I used to take them shopping, we'd go through the candy aisle and they'd say other candies come and go, but Tootsie Rolls last a long time. That was for my benefit and the benefit of anybody else who happened to be walking by. The child in the cart is at your eye level, so if you're going by an aisle that is selling dog food and there's a new one with cheese in it, it's going to be at eye level. If it's Skippy, if it's Alpo, it can be on the ground. It's been around forever. You're going to find it. Same with the cereal. And the Barry Bonds, I'm sure, is going to be on a box of today's cereal. I'm sure you'd find that. Or one of the skating champions from the recent Olympics. If it's Rice Krispies, you'd think that would be on the floor because that's been around since I was a child, except for an important corporation like the Kellogg's Corporation with some clout can say, I want my product there. And if they're powerful enough, it's going to be in the middle. No mistake, it's all planned for you. When you check out, there you are standing with some time on your hands to see what the newest scandal is about Tom Cruise. And as you let the child out of the basket, the child's facing the baseball stickers, the candy. No accident. They could have put the baseball stickers and National Enquirer anywhere in the store. They know where you're going to be held up 10 minutes. They know that most people, myself included, are going to start reading an article and say it's only another $1 or whatever. So your focus is controlled. If you go to a funeral home to buy a casket for Aunt Susie, you're going to find the same story. Your focus is controlled, just like the car salesman. You go to the right and you're shown the caskets in the $6,000 range. They know what you're going to say, kind of high. And so they lead you down on the right-hand side and they show you a pine-covered box with some gungy fabric that's $395. And they know you're going to say, I liked Aunt Susie better than that. And they take you around still further to the right, and then you get the expensive caskets with all the wonderful features. Maybe Aunt Susie was a ballet aficionado, so you can buy one with a lid of a Degas ballet scene. Then Aunt Susie and the ballet world are locked together for eternity. Or you like the 49ers, you actually can get a casket shaped with the color and the logo of the 49ers on it. And you can buy things like vault-proof, leak-proof insurance. Only I don't know how anybody ever checks on that one after the fact. Most people, they know, like in the car show rooms, are going to go off and have a little chat. $395 too cheap, $14,000 too high. They're going to buy something in the $6,000 to $8,000 range, and that's exactly what the people who owned the business thought you were going to do in the first place. You go out thinking you got a good deal. They go out thinking, gotcha. So I'm telling you, your focus is controlled. And the example before we get into writing is one on movies. One of my favorite movies, all-time favorite movies, is Steve Martin in Father of the Bride Part 2. I love that movie. And my favorite scene is where his daughter and his wife are going into labor at the same time. The daughter is actually in labor. And he says to the wife, outside of the delivery room, we can't let a doctor with a name like Megan deliver our daughter's child. She's too young. And this blue blur stands in back of Steve Martin until he stops talking, and then she's in sharp focus and she says, well, I delivered 310 babies if you don't want to count the 2 I delivered this morning. You don't see her until he's done talking. Can you imagine that Steve Martin couldn't get a director who could get the whole scene in focus? No, they want to make sure you're looking at Steve Martin until they're ready to have you look at this other actor who is playing the doctor. So how about writing? Well, right now, while we're reviewing the complex sentence, it doesn't matter at all to me what you put in a main clause and what you put in a dependent clause. But the moment we get through grammar review and we go on to paragraph writing, analytical, expository prose, and essay writing, it becomes critical because that's the way you control reader focus. My favorite example, you start out writing a paragraph and you're talking from the vantage point, your own vantage point, expressing an opinion that you want to convince other people is true. And you have to remember that English is not like other things. Math, 2 and 2 is 4, but in English, there's a little bit of subjectivity going on. If I tell you that cigarettes are bad for your health, that's an opinion. To support it, it's a contract. Every main clause must be specific, and it has to go back to bad for your health. This doesn't work. Cigarettes are bad for your health. They cost $5 a pack. Has nothing to do with your health. But this does. Cigarettes are bad for your health. Main clause. Smoking 1 cigarette can shorten your life by 10.7 minutes. This does. Main clause. Smoking an entire pack of 20 cigarettes can shorten your life by 3.5 hours. Want to talk about the money? Fine, put it in a dependent clause. Whereas cigarettes are expensive, costing as much as $5 a pack. How do you control that reader focus without knowing the difference between a main clause and a dependent clause? The answer is quite simple. You can't. Now, there's one other thing I have to ask you to do before I see you at the next lecture. It doesn't do you any good to know that a dependent clause starts with a subordinate connective unless you memorize a core list. So here is a core list of subordinate connectives which I would like recital ready. And memorize them in a different compartment of your mind than the prepositions you were working on for today. Good news, total 25. They're alphabetically arranged. I'd make a cheat sheet card. There are A's 4, B 2, H 1, I 2, and so forth. I would read those over in little 5-minute pockets of time. I would read them over especially hard before you go to bed at night. When you wake up in the morning, I would practice with the cheat sheet card and a blank sheet of paper, writing out the number of subordinate connectives I could remember that started with the letter A, with the letter B, with the letter H, and don't hop around. Don't go from A to W and back to B. Keep yourself moving in an alphabetical continuum. This may look to you like all the subordinate connectives in the world, but it's only a core list. We could easily have made it 40 instead of 25 by being logical. If you know that although is a subordinate connective, doesn't it make sense to you that though and even though would be variations of a known? If you know that until is a subordinate connective, doesn't it make sense that till is a variation of that same known? If you know that what, when, where, who are subordinate connectives, then wouldn't whatever, whenever, wherever, whoever be variations of the same? So it doesn't have to be 40, because if you know this core list, you can easily expand it mentally on your own. And as soon as we understand how a dependent clause works, then other words that are not on that list and that are not variations of words on that list will come into play, and I guarantee you're going to recognize them. I want to review what I want down before I see you on the next lecture, and I'd like to do a little bit of backing up. If you haven't gotten the definition for a prepositional phrase down, would you please do so right away? Begins with a preposition, ends with a noun or pronoun object. If you can't remember what they do, would you please memorize the function? Add extra information. How? Answer one of those 6 questions. Know those questions. Who, how, where, what, why, when. Next thing, of course, memorize the single word prepositions. Of course, memorize the group prepositions. You won't recognize them unless you do. And remember the pitfall, we almost tripped on it a couple of times today. To followed by a noun or pronoun is going to give you a prepositional phrase, but to followed by a verb is not. It's going to give you a verb, or as Ben said, an infinitive phrase. New material, to be down, absolutely, on the next lecture. Definition of a complex sentence, 1 main clause, 1 or more dependent clauses. Definition of a dependent clause, 3 components, complete subject, complete verb. 100% of the time, no exception, starts with a subordinate connective. The function of a dependent clause, to introduce secondary, less important information, to control reader focus, because once you set out with an opinion in a paragraph, in an essay, you have an obligation as a writer to support that opinion, the controlling idea, or the contract with main clause examples, as specific as you can make them, that go directly back to that opinion, to that controlling idea. Any secondary information is deliberately placed in a dependent clause. And finally, you've got to memorize recital ready forever, not just for the next lecture, the subordinate connectives. So if I call on you, if I say, Janice, how about the A's? I expect after, although, as if. How about the B's? Because, before. How about H? How? How about I? If, in order that. L, like, and you get the idea. The hardest part is going to be the W's, because I think you've got about 9 of those. If you keep them alphabetical, your life will be easier. Who's got a burning question that needs to be answered? Everybody happy? I will mention one fact. This is going to get harder, not easier, but remember this is a cumulative skill, and I automatically suppose that you're reviewing everything from square one on a daily basis. Remember what I told you, you lose 86% of newly processed information in 2 weeks' time if you're not constantly going over that information. Yes, Scott?
Would you say that the complex sentence part of your course is the most difficult part of this course?
I think it's the most difficult of the 4 sentence types because, as we'll see, once you get that foundational information I asked you to get down before the next lecture, there are many variations, and you have to understand all the variations. So this is the foundation. If you don't understand the definition of the complex sentence, the definition of the dependent clause, and its function, and know that core list of subordinate connectives, this is hopelessly impossible. But if you do, it's just a challenge. That was a good question. Anybody else with a question or a comment? Okay, you should be feeling pretty good about yourself, because you should be able to say, I know a lot more this week than I knew 2 weeks ago. I know more now than I knew 3 weeks ago, and that's the whole point. By the end of the quarter, you ought to be an absolute master of grammar.